सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। चैतन्यं सर्वगं सर्वं सर्वभूतगुहाशयम् यत्सर्वविषयातीतं तस्मै सर्वविदे नमः। अहं ब्रह्मास्मि सर्वोऽस्मि शुद्धो बुद्धोऽस्म्यतः सदा अजः सर्वत एवाहम् अजरश्चाक्षयो मृतः वदन्यः सर्वभूतेषु बोद्धा कश्चिन्न विद्यते कर्माध्यक्षश्च साक्षी च चेता नित्यो गुणोद्वयः। आत्मनः ब्रह्मत्वं सम्पाद्य यद्यपि यथोक्त आत्मविदः समाध्यादि कर्तव्यं नास्ति. So in the page 190, even though it is true that for a knower of the self, he doesn't have to concentrate his mind upon self because he is the self. तथापि आत्मनो ब्रह्मत्वं सम्पाद्य, still Atma has to be known or made to be Brahma. Atma has to become Brahma for the non-duality. Prapanchasya vilaha kartabhya, for non-duality again, the prapancha should be completely resolved, merged. So even though nothing remains to be done, still this remains to be accomplished. Brahma rupatasva nitya siddhatvat. Atma does not have to become Brahma. That Atma is Brahma. I am Brahma. Prapanchasya cha ajnanamatra vilisatasya. And what is called prapancha is an appearance, not a reality. Therefore, nothing has to be done just to recognize that even when it appears, it's not true, not real. Therefore, na tad anushtayam avashishyate. After gaining the knowledge, the teacher says, neither samadhi etc. has to be done. nor when to accomplish the fact that I am Brahman, or that something needs to be done in prapancha, and nothing remains to be done. Aham brahmasmi sarvosmi shuddho buddhyosmi sada. Sadaham brahmasmi, not that I become Brahma, I always am Brahma. Atah bandhahinaha sarvosmi shuddhosmi sada sarvosmi sada shuddhosmi sada buddhosmi. Since I am Brahma, atah, therefore, Brahma is Sarvatma, I am all, I am the self of all. Shuddhosmi, ever pure, ever enlightened, ever awakened, Buddhosmi. Sarvada ajaha evaham ajarascha akshayaha amritaha. Janma kshaya hetu rahita. Pratideham chetana bhede bhasamane. Even when I am Brahma, but still I see that there is Atma in every body, in every embodiment. Pratideham chetana bhede bhasamane. That the Chetana, the self, is as many as the bodies or embodiments are there. Katham brahmasmiti pratichaha purnataanubhava. Means I am Brahman, that means purnoham, I am complete, I am whole. How can I be whole when I exclude other self and I am being excluded by them? Madanyas sarvabhuteshu bodha kaschinna vidyate. There is no bodha, no knower, no self other than myself. I am the bodha in all the upadhis, I am the karta, bhokta, whatever. Nanyat ataha kartuvasti. Nanyat ataha bhoktuvasti, drashtasti, drashtuvasti. There is no drashta, no shrota, no manta other than the self. Na atma antara shankayati, therefore there is no antaratma. What is many is the upadhis, but not the self. Now continue verse number 20, page 191. Aham brahmasmi iti. So in the verse 18 we are told Aham brahmasmi iti atra uktam atmana brahmatvam upapaditam. The question is, when I am not Brahman, how to become Brahma? How can I be complete? How can nothing remains to be done? I don't have to become Brahma. I am Brahma. Upapaditam, that was explained with upatya reasoning. That janma kshaya hetu rahita ityartha nirvikaroham. Then sarvosmi, second one was said there. Sarvosmi yuktam tu badhayam. But sarvosmi, how can I be all? Brahma I am, but how can I be all? Iti badhayam. So aham brahmasmi, this is the mukhya ekatvam. Mukhya ekya. But that I am sarva, I am all is badhayam samanadikaranyam. That I am all, there, the idea of all is to be recognized as just an appearance. All is an appearance. Or many is an appearance. So in the statement sarvoham, I am all, the word sarva is to be recognized as that is to be dropped or negated. Recognize that there is no such thing as real sarva. Sarva is an appearance, all is an appearance, many is an appearance. The variety and diversity of names and forms is all an appearance, not a reality. That I am Brahman is the primary reality. Mukhya Samadhikaranyam. That I am all is Badha Samadhikaranyam, that the all has to be seen as mithya. And then there is Samadhikaranyam. So Samadhikaranya Abhiprayamiti. That when the teacher says Sarvosmi, the Abhipraya, what is intended to be conveyed is that Sarva is recognized, is to be recognized as an appearance which does not in any way create any duality in Aham. Aham doesn't become separated, multiplied, minimized because of Sarva. Sarva does not in any way affect the totality of Aham. So the verse 20 says, Na satchaham na cha satcha no bhayam kevala shivaha na me sandhya na ratrirva na harva sarvada drushe. This is Sarvam, the description of Sarva. Satcha, Asatcha, Sandhya, Ratri, Aha. So this Sarva is Bhada Samadhikaranyam. This kind of diversity appears to be there, that there is Sat and there is Asat and I am Sat. So all of this, how can I be? How can I be Sat also, Asat also, Ubhaya also, Sandhya also, Ratri also, Aha also? Sarva includes all of this. So when it is said Sarvoham, we recognize that all this is just Sat, Asat, Ubhaya, all of this really an appearance or mithya which in any way affects Aham. The wholeness or the non-divided Aham is not affected in any way by all of this. So therefore Badha, Nacha Sat Aham, Sat Pratyakshayogyam Prithvi. So of the 5 elements, the 3 elements Prithvi, Ap, Tejaha are called Sat because they are Pratyaksha, meaning perceptible to eyes. The other 2 elements, Vayu and Akash, are called Asat. Pratyaksha ayogyam. Pratyaksha means as far as the eyes are concerned. What cannot be perceived by eyes are the 2 elements Vayu and Akasha, therefore they are called Asat. Tyat shabda nidishtam satcha tyatcha. So what is meant of Tyat is Asat, or there are 2 elements. Vayu akasmadakam bhutadvayam. No bhayam, nor am I both. Panchabhuta parinanatmakam sarira samsthanam. Nor I am both, meaning that not I am all the 5 elements which result in this body and the gross world, that I am not. Tatsvaram nahamiti ukte neti neti maya. So that way, whatever is superimposed upon me, that Sat Aham, Sthuloham, so that I am the Sthula Sharira, gross, I am the subtle body, Asat, or I am combination of the 2, that I am, so all of this is negated. Iti mai aropya nishiddhatvat. So gross body, subtle body, all of these which are habitually superimposed upon I, and therefore I equate myself with the 2. By saying Naham Sat, Naham Asat, Naham Ubhayam, this is negated. Anyatra Maicha Asatvat. There is nothing other than the self elsewhere or in me. Aham evedam saram. There is not non-aham. In me or elsewhere, there is nothing that is not aham. Aham evedam sarvamiti yuktam evoktam. So when everything that was superimposed, what created a sort of a notion of separatedness from others, from sarva, was superimposing upon me of Sat and Asat and Ubhaya, which created that separatedness. When I am devoid of Sat and Asat and Ubhaya, nothing that can now stand separate from me, because I am not separate, there is nothing to separate me. I become nirvishesha and nirvid. So, nirvishesha, I cannot be separate from anything. Therefore, aham evadam sarvamiti yuktam uktam. It was said correctly, rightly, logically that I am everything. So from me also what was superimposed has been negated. From others also what was superimposed is negated. And therefore when the superimposition are negated on both, in sarva as well as aham, then what remains is the nirvishesha. That's what I am. That's what everything is. Kevalaha sarvavishesh shunyah. So all the vishesha, the attributes are negated in me as well as in others. When no vishesha remains, what is nirvishesha? Kevalaha, non-dual. Kevalaha Shivaha. Nistraygunyo bhavami sat nistraygunyaha. Neither am I the bhava, hara, mruda. Mruda, so sattva guna is superimposed, bhava, rajo guna is superimposed, hara, tamo guna is superimposed. Then I become creator, sustainer, dissolver. Ram Shiva nistraygunya. So again, these three gunas were superimposed upon me as well as superimposed upon other names and forms, and that's what created a sense of separatedness. But they are also not, I am not that also. Name sandhya na ratrirva na aharva. Sandhya I am not. Sandhya is not mine. Ratri is not mine. Aha is not mine. The night is not mine, the day is not mine, and the time of the union between the two is also not mine. Sandhyadi kala vishesha yogat. Katham? So kala vishesha yogat. But still I am connected with kala. The idea is that even after you negate this grossness, subtleness and everything, and still I still remain to be associated with time. So Sandhya, Ratri, Ahaha, the evening or morning and day and night, they stand for Kala, for time. So I feel that I get influenced by the time. Sandhyadi Kala Vishesha Yoga. It is not that I am different in the morning, different in the evening, different during the day, different at night. Katham kevalatvam. How do you say you are a kevala nirvishesha? Says nave sandhya ratrirva. How do you say sandhya is not yours, ratri is not yours, ahaha is not yours? Sarvada drushe. I am Drishi Swarupa. Alupta Prakashatmatvad. Prakashatmatvam of the nature of Prakasha. Alupta Prakashatmatvad. I am of the nature of the unceasing, ceaseless Prakasha, ever shining consciousness I am. In me, therefore, there is no night, there is no day, there is no evening. All other explain Yadva Sandhyadi Shabdehi Kramena Swapna Sushupti Jagaranani Uchante. So by Ratri is meant Sushupti, by Ahaha is meant Jagaranam, therefore by Sandhya, which is the conjoinment of the two is Swapna. Meaning that the waking also is not for me, dream also is not for me, I am not connected to waking or dream or deep sleep. Sadaiva ekarupena sarvada drishehe. Sadaiva ekarupena prakashmanasya. I don't go to sleep, then therefore I don't wake up, and therefore I don't dream. These things happen in the mind, not in the self. Sada eva ekarupena prakashmanasya. One is shining ever, changelessly effulgent. Swarupa avarana vikshayavastaha kutastaha iti. Kutastyaha. So in deep sleep state there is Swarupa avaranam. Dream and waking state there is Swarupa vikshepa. Agrahanam, anyasagrahanam. Non-perception and misperception. In deep sleep state, non-perception. In dream, of course, the misperception. In waking also misperception. In I, who is the ever-shining light of consciousness, how can there be any darkness of ignorance bringing about the avarana and vikshepa? So Sarvosmi is explained here. Tasmat chidekatanasya atmanah nirvisheshasya yuktam brahmarupena punatmamedi. Therefore, Atmanah Chidegatanasya, of the self that is ever of the nature of Chit or consciousness, Ekatanasya Ekarasasya, homogeneous consciousness I am, Nirvisheshatvam Yuktam, that I am devoid of any Vishesha or attributes, any particulars. And therefore, yuktam brahma rupena purnatvam. Therefore, that I am nirvishesham brahma and therefore boundless I am. Any visheshata or any qualification create a boundary. Because when any entity is qualified, then it becomes different from another entity having a different qualification. So Visheshata, qualifications in fact create the boundaries, limitations. Nirvisheshasya yuktam brahmarupena punatvam. Therefore, I am boundless. Purnoham brahmasmi. Iti sadushtantama. That is said along with the dushtanta or illustration. Sarvamurti iti. Sarvamurti viyuktam yata yathakam sukshmamadvayam tenapyasmi vina bhutam brahmaivaham tathadvayam. Yatha come. So dushantam, dustant is come or the space. Sarva Murti Vyuktam. Murti is form. Just as space is devoid of any form, it's formless. Again, it's Sukshmam. Space is subtle with reference to all the five elements. Advayam. Space is undivided, non-divisible, therefore non-dual. So first line of the verse describes a drishtanta example. Tenapi asmi vinabhutam brahmaivaham tathadvayam. I am also therefore asmi vinabhutam. So vinabhutam brahmasmi. I am also brahmasmi. Brahmaivaham advayam. So like the space is formless, subtle, non-dual, so also I am formless, subtle, non-dual Brahma. So common space is given to us for the purpose of contemplation. As an example, say the tika yatha akasham sarvasmat parichinnakarad vilakshanam iti suksham alakshade. Yatha akasham, just as space. Sarvasmat parichinna akarad vilakshanam. Sarvamurti vyuktam. The word of murti or form that explained as sarvasmat parichinna akarad vilakshanam. Sarvasmat vilakshanam. Akasha is distinct from all. From what? Parichinna akarad. Space is distinct from anything that is possessed of a limited form. Space is form and is therefore quite distinct from anything that possesses form and limited. It is sukshmam alakshade. In that sense, akasha is said to be sukshmam, subtle. Tata idam brahma paripurnam atyanta sukshmam dvaita abhava ishyade. Sukshmam advayam. So also this Brahman is also devoid of any form, devoid of any attributes, and there was nothing that can affect its purnata or wholeness. The wholeness, the boundlessness can be affected if Brahman has some attribute, some form, some qualification. Like space, I am all pervasive, formless, subtle. And therefore, space is sukshma, atyanta sukshmam, dvaita abhava upalakshitam advayam. So dvaita abhava does not involve dvaita. Upalakshitam. We are implied by the word advayam. Advayam. So advitiyatvam, dvaita bhavatvam, the state of absence of dvaita. So what is upalakshitam? What is intended by that? What is implied by that? Tasmad brahmanah advitiyatvat atmanasya tadanyatva ananyatvat. Since Brahman is paripurnam, sukshmam, sarvamurti vyuktam, therefore there is nothing other than Brahman, advitiyam. Otherness can be there provided Brahman is some form, some visheshata, some grossness or tangibility. That is what seems to Tasmad Brahman Advidiyatvat Atmanasya Tadananyatvat. said Aham Brahmasmi. So first Brahma is Paripurnam. Because formless, Nirvishesham, Advitiyam, and Atmana Tadananya, and Atma, the self being Ananya, none other than same as Brahman. Brahma Yavasmiti, that I am Brahman. Tari Brahma Akasha Upaman Upame Mahavane Bhedat Katham Brahma Dvityamiti. You gave the example of Akasha. In order to describe Brahma, Akasha becomes Upama. And Brahma is Upameya. So illustration, illustrated. The illustration is always different from illustrated. You give the example of 10th man to explain what is always accomplished. So Atma, then 10th man becomes the illustration for explaining the ever accomplishment of Atma. But what is Upama, the illustration is different from what is illustrated. Otherwise, how will you know what is illustrated? So here, Akasha is presented as an example, as an illustration. It can serve as an illustration provided it is different from Brahman, which is illustrated. So this is what we find normally, that what is illustrated is different from the illustration, otherwise there is no illustration. If Akasha and Brahma are identical in every way, then Akasha cannot stand as illustration because then it's the same. Some difference must be there between the Drishtanta and Darshtanta, illustration and illustrated. Katham, then that means Akasha, which is presented in illustration, has to be different from Brahma, otherwise it won't become illustration. Katham Brahma Advitiyamiti, then how do you say there is Brahma and there is Akasha? There are two entities. So second line of verses, Tenapyasmi Vyanabhutam Brahmaivaham Tasadvayam. Tenapyasmi Vyanabhutam. Tena Akashana Vyanabhutam Siddham Brahmasmi. I do not require Akasha really to prove my existence. I do not require Akasha even to establish my existence or paripurnatva, non-duality. That I am, without the Akasha also I am Brahman. Tena Akasha Vinabhutam, meaning Siddham Brahmasmi. Vyavharadascha Upamanadi Bhedevi Paramatad Bhavaditi. Even though in the Vyavhara Akasha is presented in illustration, in reality Akasha does not exist apart from Brahman and therefore does not exist apart from self. Nadvaidakshatihi, therefore there is no duality between self and Akasha or Brahman and Akasha. In Vyavhara one may think that Akasha is different from me, but in reality it is not. Ekam advayapadam akashana sambadhyate dvitiyam brahmana iti apaunrutyam. So first line ends with sukshmam advayam. The advayam is description of Akasha. Second line also brahmevaham tatha advayam. That's advayam stands for Brahma. And therefore, even though advayam means non-dual, first non-dual is for Akasha, second non-dual is for Brahma. Therefore, it is not that the same word or same sense is repeated. Same word is repeated, but the same meaning is not repeated. पूर्वम आकाश दृष्टांतेन पूर्णत्व निरूपणाद परमार्थ परिच्छेदाशंका निराकृता. Thus in the previous verse, Akasha Drishtantena, by illustration of Akasha, Purnatva Nirupana. So that word Brahman, the Purnata of Brahman was illustrated by explaining to us the Purnata or boundlessness of Akasha. That Brahman is Purnam, boundless. And that was explained, therefore there is no paricheda, there is no boundary, it is boundless as the space is. So by the illustration of Akasha, the boundlessness of Brahman was illustrated, was explained. Paramatha paricheda ashanka nirakrita. Even though in the Vyavahara there may appear to be paricheda or limitation, the boundaries, in fact there is no boundary. In the Adhishthanam there is no boundary, in Brahman there is no boundary, the illuminator there is no boundary, one who eliminates all the boundaries. Idanim teniva drishtani bheda paricheda pratitehe gatimaha. Bheda paricheda pratitehe. Still whatever bheda, the duality seen, there is a pratiti, there is an appearance of still the bheda and paricheda, the limitation created by the bheda. That seems to be there in Vyavahara. So gatim, the nature of that apparent bheda is explained in the next verse. Mama atma adi. Mama atma sata atmeti. भेदो व्योम्नो यथा भवेत् एकस्य सुषिभेदेन तथा मम विकल्पितः. मम आत्मा अस्य मम आत्मा ते आत्मा इति भेदः. My आत्मा, your आत्मा. All the Tikakara, as you can see in the footnote 1, Mama Atma Swata Atma, Mama Atma Swata Atma iti. Ti Atma, no, not Asyate, Mama Atma Swata Atma iti. This is another part. Tika Sammata. So Tikakara says, so Mama Atma, Te Atma, My Atma, Your Atma, Aham Atma, Mama Atma, I am Atma, My Atma. So this kind of expressions are there. My Atma, I am Atma, My Atma. Iti bhedaha vyomno yatha bhave, just as a space may appear to be different. Sushi bhedena, because of the bheda or the differences in the apertures, enclosures. Enclosures are many, therefore ghatakasha, patakasha, mathakasha, etc. The bheda may be there. Tatha mo vikalpitaha. Mama jnatu atma swarum brahma iti swatah swasya atma iti cha. आत्म आत्मीय भावेन भेद प्रतिभासः. मम आत्मा स्वरूप ब्रह्म, my atma, that swarup, my swarupa is Brahma. Swatah swasya atma iti cha. So I am Brahma, this is myself, I am the self. It is atma atmiya bhavena bheda pratibhasa. When I say myself, then I am different, the possessor of the self. And self is possessed by me. When I say myself, which is what we say also, myself. When we thus have this prayoga or expression, myself, my is the sixth case, and therefore I am the possessor of the self, self is possessed by me, and the atma atmiya, I and mine, that kind of a duality is as though created in our mind. Bheda pratibhasa, this apparent bheda. Aropito bhaved. Mama antahkarnadi upadhikrita bheda paricheda apekshaya. So when Atmatvam, the nature of this, the idea of self is superimposed upon the antahkarana and the upadhi, then I am as though the possessor of Atma of the nature of upadhi. Antahkaranadi upadhikrita bheda paricheda apekshaya. Looks like I am different and the upadhi that is possessed by me is different. Therefore, when there is an idea of this notion of selfness or atmatvam in upadhi, then that becomes my atma. So, the atma atmiya, I and mine, my atma, when I say, that kind of notion arises in me on account of the idea of selfness in the upadhi. Upadhi is mine. And since upadhi is looked upon as atma habitually, therefore I call it my atma. Upadhi krita bheda paricheda apekshaya. That bheda of I and mine is created by the upadhi. And that bheda is superimposed upon the atma or the self, and therefore this idea of I and my, I atma, my atma. Vikalpita aropito bhavet. यथा एकस्य व्योम्न सुषिभेदेन छिद्रभेदेन. So there is a space, complete space, and then there is a chidra or there is a little aperture. Amshamshi bhava rupo bheda. Bheda is that amsha, this is a part of the space. When the apertures are there, it looks like there is one part of the space, second part of the space, third part of the space. And space is a whole, so part and whole, that kind of idea is created in space because of the apertures. So also the Atma also is part and whole, I am the whole and this is my Atma, and that is part. This habitual duality is created. Vikalpita hai, but that is when you think about it, there cannot be this kind of division in the space, the total space and part space. There cannot be division in Atma, that I am Atma, my Atma, there cannot be. It is habitual superimposition. This is Ghatakasha, Patakasha, Mathakasha is habitual notion entertained by us. But the notion entertained by it because the habitual superimposition takes place, and so the habitual superimposition takes place upon this upadhi, creates an idea of I and mine. That Atma is as though divided into I and mine. Tasmad avidya dashayam bheda vyavharepi. So in avidya I call it I and mine, part and whole. So these notions are there when I do not know the reality of I, do not know the reality of even of this also, that what is just one, even what I call the Jagat also, and then the diversity etc. is all only apparent, there is no diversity in reality. But avidya avasthayam, when the vyavahara is given the reality, then bheda vyavahara, then even a wise person also in the vyavahara may say I and mine, or ghatakasha, patakasha. So that ghatakasha stores something, patakasha stores something else, mathakasha stores something else. So that kind of differences can be there in vyavahara. Idanim avagadatma tattvasya sopi nasti. Now, avagata atma tattvasya, avagatam atma tattvam, the one who has known the atma tattva, for that person, the wise person, even that vyavaharic duality also is not there when he abides in the atma. Meaning he doesn't perceive the duality at all, only perceives the self. Iti siddham. So next verse is Bhedo bhedastatha chaikah Nana cheti vikalpitah Jneyam jnata gatir ganta Mayye kasmin kuto bhavet. So formally all this was there. Ekasmin purvam bhedaha bhedasya vikalpito vyavahurutaha. When I was ignorant, therefore I looked upon the upadhyas myself. Therefore then bhedaha abhedaha. So this idea that I am Atma, my Atma, or the one, many, dual, non-dual, even that also is Veda. The non-dual also is only with reference to duality. Vikalpito vyavahurutaha. Therefore I use the expression abhedaha with reference to Veda. Advaya with reference to Dvaya. When Dvaya is accepted, then the question of Advaya comes. When Bheda or division is accepted, then question of Abheda comes. So Abheda also stands in relation to Bheda. So that is also a Kalpana. Abheda also becomes a Kalpana of the same nature as Bheda. So this was there in Vyavahara. Eko nana chet aham vikalpita, one, many, also the Kalpana. Jneyam jnata gatihi. Jnaya, object of knowledge, jnata, the knower, gati, phalam, the result of knowledge, or ganta, phalaprapti karta, the one who attains the bhokta, who experiences phala. Aham vikalpita. So all of this was superimposed upon me. That I am the jnata, this is jnayam, I am the bhokta, this is bhogya. All this was vikalpita. So now when I look at my true nature, how can there be this karta, bhokta, etc.? How can it be in me? Because all of that is in upadhi, but then how can it be in me? When I know the true nature of myself, I realize that all these notions have no existence. Vicharyamana bhavedityaర్థah. Even though habitually it was there, so vyavahara it was there, it may even be there for a wise person, but not in reality. No tathapi samsaritvam heyam brahmatvam cha upadayameti no nirvisheshvatvam atmahiti ched. Tathapi samsaritvam heyam. The state of being a samsari, that I am a samsari, that much samsaritva has to be given up from me. Brahmatva, and then I have to become Brahma also. Samsaritva has to be negated in me, given up from me, and Brahmatva has to be acquired in me. No nirvisheshvatvam atma. How can you say atma is nirvishesha when samsaritva is there? So one vishesha has to be given up, other vishesha has to be acquired. Samsaritva is a vishesha now which I have to give up, and Brahmatva is what I have to become. So I always remain savishesha. Kasam nirvisheshatvam atmanahiti. So one vishesha, samsaritva is given up, other vishesha, Brahmatva is acquired. How do I remain nirvishesha? So verse 24 says, Na me heyam na chadeyam avikari yato hyaham sada muktastatha shuddha sada buddho gunodvaya. Namehayam, don't think that samsaritva is to be given up. Heyam means something is to be discarded, something to be given up, provided it is there in the first place. Samsaritvam, the state that become of samsara is an imagination, not a reality about me. Now, adayam, brahmatvam is not something separate from me that I have acquired. It was a notion that I am samsari. It was a notion that I am not Brahma. The notions have to be given up. No real heyam upadayam. Nothing acquired and nothing should be given in reality. Why is it so? Avikari yato hyaham. Because I am avikari. In nirvikara there cannot be any vishesha at all, and therefore there is nothing to be given up. There is no vikara to be given up and no vikara to be acquired. If vikari will give up one vikara, acquire another vikara. If I am vikari, then I am qualified by samsara, changes me, that I will give it up. And brahmatvam I have to acquire, that would have been so had I been vikari or changing or limited. That's not so. Sada mukta ta shuddha, I am ever mukta, ever pure. Sada buddha aguno dvaya nirguna advaya. So, namehayam na chadayam tatra hetuma. How come na hayam, there is nothing to be given up by me or in me or nothing to be acquired? Avikari yatah yasmad aham avikari. Because nirvikaroham. Kuta avikari apekshayam tatra pramanam hi shabda. So, avikari yato hyaham, there is a he in there, he aham. That he shows here that this is not something that is our imagination, something that the Shastra says, avikaryo yamuchyade. Where is it said? Bhagavad Gita. That I am avikarya uchyade, atma is sirif avikarya. And therefore, that cannot be, so there is no heyam, no upadayam. So phalitam, what does it amount to? Sada muktaha. Even when I thought I was bound, I always was free. When I thought I was bound, if I was really bound, then the bondage has to be given up. And freedom has to be acquired. But sada muktaha. Sadaiva bandha samsarga shunya ityartaha. Had no association with bondage at all, at any time, even when I thought I was bound. The 10th man thinks that 10th man is lost, then also is 10th man. Tata shuddha. Shuddhatva tad hetu avidya sambandharahitaha. Avidya is all shuddhi, even shuddha. Avidya does not test me, I am jnana swarupa. Yata sada buddha, because of the nature of consciousness, trikim bodha guna. That I am Buddha, I am enlightened, I am wise. Does it mean that wisdom is your qualification? No, agunaha, bodha rupaha. Nayayika say that bodha, or the knowledge, is the attribute of Atma. Satyam jnanamanantam, the jnanam is interpreted by them as jnanam is consciousness, the nature of Atma. Because the Vaisheshikas say that consciousness is an incidental thing in Atma. Atma is a dravya. No. Bodha rupa. Bodhyam, if you are of the nature of knowledge, then is there something bodhyam, something no knowledge? Then is there something, is knowledge in reference to something to be known? It says no, advaya. No duality of the knower, known, knowledge, etc. Tadevam mukta lakshanam atma tattvam shastracharya prasadat shravanam nidhyasanishtam praptasan sada mukshu aham brahmasmi anusandadhyat iti moksham protsahayati. Mukta lakshanam atma tattvam Shastracharya prasadat. By the grace of Shastra and Acharya. Because Shravanam, Mananam can take place only when there is grace of Shastra and Acharya, and of course Ishvara and Atma, otherwise it cannot take place. So may one attain nishtha or abidance in shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam when there were sada anusandadhyat. One should constantly dwell upon, upon the fact that aham brahmasmi. One should always meditate upon, contemplate upon the fact that aham brahmasmi. The result of the maturity of the shravanam, manam, nididhyasanam. So may the mumukshu do this always, because this is a fact now, that you are nirvishesha, nirguna, non-dual, Brahman, paripurna, boundless. So keep that in mind. In order to gain an abidance in that, may you constantly only deliberate upon that. Muksham protsahayati. So encourage mukshu to do this. Ityavamiti. Ityevam sarvadatmanam vidyat sarvam samahitah viditva mam swadehastham rushir mukto dhruvo bhavet. Iti evam sarvada atmanam sarvam samahitah. Samahitah san, being single pointed. Sarvada evam atmanam vidyat. That one may constantly know or keep in mind, see this fact that I am Brahman, paripurnaham, nirvisheshvaham, nirgunaham, advitiyaham. So if this is the knowledge that you gain, what is the reward? Vedana phalamaha viditva mam swadehastham. Thus knowing me as obtaining in this body. Rushi bhavet, one becomes a Rushi, sarvadarshi. So Rush is in the sense of jnanam, and therefore one becomes, Rushi means sarvadarshi, becomes all-knowing. In what sense? He sees everything as Atma. So Rushi, one who sees everything as a very self, sarvadarshi. Ukta tattvavidah uktam muktim prapanchayadi kritakrityasya. So, then the next verse is Ukta tattvavidah uktam muktim prapanchayadi. Of the wise person described in this manner, what is mukti? Mukto dhruvo bhaved. Viditva mam swadehastam rushi mukto dhruvo bhaved. Because mukta. So muktim prapanchayati. What is the nature of this mukti? So next verse is kritakrityascha. Kritakrityascha siddhascha. Yogi brahmana evacha. Yaevam veda tattvartham anyatha hyatmaha bhavet. Kritakrityascha. So muktaha, kritam krutyam yena saha, one is completely fulfilled. Everything that was to be done has been done. Nothing remains to be done. Nothing remains to be accomplished. Nothing remains to be known, done, accomplished, reached. And so, complete satisfaction with me, with the self, with everything that is. As long as something is to be accomplished, there is dissatisfaction. Something will be done, something will be known, something to be gained, some agenda remains. Kritakritya, one is free from all the agenda, all the needs and expectations. So that's the true nature of myself. That is the reason why Vedanta says, do not justify your needs. Do not justify your desires and expectations. There are expectations in you, desires in you, demands in you. recognize that those demands, desires, expectations are all born of ignorance. And more you justify our demand, more you justify expectation, more you justify requirement, you are only perpetuating ignorance. You are perpetuating insufficiency being perpetuated, and insufficiency is a notion you are entertaining about yourself. So when I justify why not, all of this is simply hurting myself ultimately. So Atmaha bhave, this person becomes Atmaha, one who damages and hurts the Atma. Krutakrityasya siddhasya yogi brahmanevacha is called Krutakritya. Siddha, the accomplished. Yogi, the self, the master of oneself. Brahmana, in the primary sense, Brahma janati Brahmana. Upadeshasahasri Upanishad uses the word Brahmana in more than one places. But here the footnote says, Upadeshasahasri Upanishad 3.8.10. Yovai daksharam gargi aviditva asma lokat prati sa krupana. Hey Gargi, one who departs from this body without knowing the self as Brahman, he is a Krupana. He is a miser. Or one, not a miser, means one who has wasted the wealth given to him. Then Krupana is not a very good word actually. We call it miser anyway. Miser doesn't use his wealth. Here is a person who has wasted his wealth. You can say he has not used the wealth in terms of the opportunity given to that person. Wasted away whatever was given. The hinastya atmana atmanam tato yadipan. Bhagavad Gita will say in 13th chapter, atmana atmanam na hinastya. Does not hurt himself by himself anymore. Moment giving reality to my smallness, and therefore the duality, and therefore the limitedness, and therefore the expectation. This is a whole samsara. And more I give reality to that, more I am perpetuating samsara, meaning I am hurting myself. Every time I expect something, demand something, want something, I do not realize that I am hurting myself by perpetuating that want and demand. Because want fulfilled will never get fulfilled, it will only grow like pouring butter in the fire. Asaya etadaksham gari vitva small lokat prayati sab brahma. Hey Gari, on the other hand, when departs from here, knowing the self, aksharam, the immutable, he is a Brahmana. Sab brahmaneti shrutehe mukhyo brahmanevacha bhaved. Not just Brahmana by caste, but Brahmana in the real sense of the word is what he becomes. And suppose you don't care to do this, evam nishthahinasya pratyavayamaha, there is no choice other than becoming Brahmana. Because when I am not Brahmana, then I am hurting myself, unfortunately. When I am not doing something right, I am doing something wrong. That's the problem here. Evam nisthayana pratyavayamaha. Pratyavaya, the fault, the offense, is anyathayate. Anyathahi atmaha bhavet. Otherwise you become atmaha. Atmanam hanti. The one who hurts himself. Doesn't kill himself, but hurts himself. Uktam Shri Bhagavate Bhagavata. Of course, the Upanishad says, Asuryanam te lokaha andhena tamasavataha tamste prityabhigachanti yekecha atmahano janaha. But here the Tikakara quotes from Bhagavatam, Nirdehamadhyam sulabham sudurlabham, because so much is given to you. Swadehastham. Nirdehem, the most exalted human body embodiment. Sudurlabham, which is most difficult to attain, unless accumulation of the countless punya karma, sulabham, has been made it easy for you. Prabham sukalpam, it is a raft or a boat which is very well constructed, sukalpam. Not something that is split apart. Guru Karnadharam, Karnadhara also, the navigator in the form of Guru also is given. Maya anukule nabhasvata iriram. And again, this sailboat that is given to you, I am the very wind which is favorable to you. Guru is a navigator, a very beautiful boat of the nature of human body is given to you, and I am the wind that is favorable to you. Bhavan, when all this is given to you, Bhavan bhavabnim na taret, and still this person does not utilize all this gift that is given to him to his own advantage. Sa Atmaha, he is called Atmaha, the injurer of the Atma. Atma can't be killed, can't be injured, but in a way there is an injury by misusing the opportunities given to you, the gift given to you. Uktasya prakaranathasya pramanikatvam darshayam. This prakaranam that we have stated, the teacher says, is pramanikam, is authentic, coming from the pramanam. Pratipatti saukaryam aha, and also says how easy it is to gain this knowledge. In the way that we have now described it, in the way that we have expounded, to make it easy for you to comprehend this. That is said in the last verse here. Vedartho nischito hyeshaha samasena mayoditaha sannyasibhyah pravaktavyaha shantebhyah shishta buddhina. Vedartho nischito hyeshaha samasena maya uditaha. Nischito vedartha. Vedartha, the very artha, the meaning, the subject matter, the very theme that the Veda has presented before us, the very theme of the Veda, the central idea of the Veda, the main topic of the Veda is this. Is not karma, it is jnanam, the knowledge of the self, the identity of Brahman and the self. That's the Vedartha. Nischita Vedartha. So this is Nischita Vedartha. That by the Brahma Sutras and by it is determined what is the Vedartha. The Brahma Sutrakara has determined what is it that the Upanishads want to Upanishads communicate is the Jiva Brahma Aikyam. Is a non-duality of the self and Brahman, a non-duality of anything. The wholeness, completeness, boundlessness, ever freedom of the self. The purpose of saying that you are Brahman is that you are ever free. There is no lack or want in you. Don't justify any lack. Don't need to do anything. So own up what you are. That's what the Veda wants to say, Upanishads want to say. Esha samasena maya uditaha. What is stated in so many Upanishads and Brahma Sutra and so many texts has been explained or has been expounded here in this chapter in such, brief way. Samasena, sangshepen. So Vyasa Paddhati, you can find all the elaborate version or description in the scriptures which has been briefly explained by me. Easy to understand. Asya grahane mukhyadhikarino darshayati. Who are the mukhyadhikaris? Who are the most qualified people to receive this knowledge? संन्यासेभ्यः प्रवक्तव्यः शांतेभ्यः संन्यासेभ्यः प्रवक्तव्यः. This Vedartha pravaktavyah must be very well prakarshena vaktavyah. This Vedartha, the very theme of the Vedas, the very subject matter of the Vedas has to be prakarshena vaktavyah, should be very well expounded. To whom? Sannyasibhyah. To renunciate sannyasi, one who has no agenda at all, other than knowledge. Apart from the sannyasa in terms of the way of life, basically what it means is no agenda. Moment there is any agenda, it is going to be distracting. An agenda distracts the mind. So that is why sannyasa emphasizes that you give up all the kartavya, means all agenda is given up. Kartavya means sarva dharman parityaja, all agenda is given up. I am the only agenda. Sannyasibhyah. When the word sannyasi is used, somebody may confuse by saying that one who has adopted sannyasa by way of lifestyle. It says, na kevalam prapta sannyasashrame matrebhyah. Not those people who simply entered the sannyasa stage of ashra life, that is sannyasa. Kintu shantebhyah. Samadhi sadhana sampannebhyah. Sampanna, those who are possessed of the sadhanam, this very inner wealth of shama, dhamma. Shama, the tranquility of mind, dhamma, the self-mastery, uparama, the inwardness, the abiding self, abiding in self. So, sannyasibhyah pravakta, shantebhyah pravaktavyah. That shows who are the, ideally, the adhikaris, to whom this is taught, should be taught. Who should teach them? Upadeshtar Vishinasti, who must be Upadeshta? The teacher also is qualified, yes, stated, Shishta Buddhina. So the teacher must be Shishta Buddhi, and the disciple must be Shantah Sannyasi. What is Shishta Buddhina? Shishta means one who is educated, instructed. Shastra Acharya Anushishta Buddhina. One who received his knowledge from Shastra Acharya. So, Anushasanam. Anushasanam means commanding, Anushasanam here means teaching. Etadhyanushasanam. So this is our Anushasanam, this is our view, this is what we have to say. Shastra Acharya Anushishta Buddhina, whose buddhi is Anushishta, has been very well educated, enlightened by the Shastra and Acharya. A teacher such as that should impart this knowledge to those qualified students. Because we have given in this chapter what all has to be given. In brief, this chapter states what all is said in the Vedas. Vedasa Nischita. And here Veda means Upanishad, basically. Of course, by sannyasa, etc., the role of karma also is stated there. In this manner, this 13th chapter is the Chakshushtra Prakaranam. The Trayodasham Achakshushtra Prakaranam. Because the first word of the chapter was Achakshushvat. So that is why Achakshushtra Prakaranam. There may be some other way of also naming these chapters, but sometimes they give you some other names, but anyway, Achakshushvat Named Drashti, so Achakshushtatva Prakaranam. That's how the 13th chapter is concluded by the teacher. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeri Vyomavad Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.